I thought I had it all, a great job, a beautiful wife, and a perfect life. But one fateful day, I came home early and found my wife, Dana, in bed with Tim, our old friend. My world shattered. How could she betray me like this? I couldn't let them get away with it. Fueled by rage and heartbreak, I crafted a meticulous plan for revenge. I gathered evidence and exposed their affair to her father, shaking their world to its core. This is my story of betrayal, vengeance, and the cold, hard truth. It's funny how life can change quickly. You can be going along, feeling good, when suddenly everything changes. I was enjoying life when all at once it felt like the wind just stopped blowing. I was stuck, waiting for something to come along and push me in the right direction. That's how I ended up looking for women in a rough area just outside of Washington, D.C. They call it the Block. It's a small area, about half a mile wide, where you can find many things if you have the money. My bright yellow Mustang GT stood out among all the fancy cars like BMWs and Lexuses slowly driving around. My car was loud and powerful, and it made sure everyone noticed it. With its eye-catching paint, it made quite the statement. As I looked out from my tinted windows, I felt sick seeing the women and other things around me. How did I get here? I wasn't doing so badly. I was just feeling heartbroken, lonely, and desperate. Common problems for someone who just got divorced. My name is Jason Burton. I work as the Chief Operations Officer for Navaro Logistics. I'm not a model, I'm just a regular guy. I'm average height and weight, and while I'm not ugly, I don't really catch people's attention either. So, with a decent job, a hopeful future, and a nice personality, why am I out here looking for trouble? Honestly, I'm still trying to figure that out. Back in my last year of college, I met Dana Navaro. Her dad, Kurt Navaro, used to play baseball and then went into business. Dana was tall and pretty, and she knew it too. Her family had more money than some small countries, so school was just a fun time for her. I was working hard, getting top grades, and juggling 2 jobs just to get by. Dana was out partying, barely managing to pass. She was almost kicked out of school because of one class, Mr. McQueen's accounting class. Mr. McQueen was a tough teacher who expected hard work. You either put in the effort and did well or you failed, no matter who you were. He didn't care much for rich kids who thought they could get by on looks and money. For our final project, my best friend Tom and I were teamed up with Dana. Tom complained about it, saying she wouldn't help but would still take all the credit. But as we worked on the project, Dana and I somehow connected. She seemed to like me, but I didn't understand why. I thought she was just being nice to get through the project and would go back to her life after it was finished. In the end, even Mr. McQueen was impressed with our work. He saw us studying hard together late into the night. We got an A, which raised Dana's grade to a D. To celebrate, Tom and I went out drinking. That night, we drank more than usual. The next morning, I woke up feeling awful. I didn't have classes that day, so I just wanted to stay in bed. Luckily, I didn't have to be at work until the afternoon. At 9 a.m., I thought someone was banging on my head, but it was just someone knocking on the door. I looked through the peephole and saw it was Dana. I opened the door and she came in. I was still in my boxers and a t-shirt when she noticed. "Where were you last night?" she asked. "I called you at least 10 times and left messages. You could have called me back," she said harshly. "Tom and I went out to celebrate finishing the project," I explained. "If I was out, I couldn't check my phone." "Why don't you forward messages to your phone?" she asked. "That's not easy," I started to reply. "It's not hard. I could help you," she said. "Dana, it's really hard to forward messages if you don't have a cell phone," I said. "So what happened? Did Mr. McQueen change our grade?" "Well, no," she said, looking down. "Do you want a copy of the project for your portfolio?" I asked. "Does it have to be about the project for us to talk?" she snapped. I put my hands over my ears and fell back on the couch. The pain in my head made it hard to think. Dana leaned over, looking at me with a face I had never seen before, one that looked concerned. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I have a terrible headache," I told her. "Okay, let's go get coffee," she said. "Fine, just please don't talk so loud," I replied. I got out of bed and walked towards the door. Jason," Dana said. "Yes," I replied, looking at her. "Clothes. she said, talking to me like I was a little kid. So I got dressed and we headed to a cafe nearby. I ordered a hot black coffee with extra sugar. Dana chose a fluffy drink with caramel, cinnamon, and a cherry on top. As we sipped our drinks, she looked so nice that I would have done anything for her at that moment. If I had known back then that those 2 cups of coffee would lead to lies, a breakup, tricks, and a lot of drama, I probably would have run out of that cafe really fast. "Okay, Dana, what do you need?" I asked, taking a sip of my hot coffee. I was starting to feel better with some caffeine in me. "I don't understand," she said seriously. "What do you need from me?" I asked again. "I still don't understand," she replied, looking more serious. "Why did you call me last night?" I asked, trying to keep it simple. "Why do I need a reason to call you?" she asked back. "Do you have a jealous girlfriend or something that makes it wrong for me to call?" "No," I answered, still surprised that someone like her would want to call me. "Then why can't I call you?" she asked. "Because girls like you don't call guys like me," I said honestly. "Dana, your phone probably costs more than my car. You're beautiful, you come from money, and—" I paused. "I'm what?" she asked. "I like the beautiful part, but my dad has the money. What else am I?" "You're out of my league," I said sincerely. "Either you're not as smart as I thought, or you're just so caught up in your own thoughts that you can't see what's in front of you," she snapped. Dana was clearly upset. "Haven't you noticed we get along really well?" she continued. "I have fun when we're together. You're smart, but you don't make me feel dumb. You're funny and kind of cute. I really like you. So what's wrong with us being friends?" she asked. From that day on, we never looked back. Our friendship quickly grew into dating, and then we became a couple, which shocked me a lot. I met most of Dana's rich and beautiful friends, whom I had only seen from a distance. Although I would probably never fit in with them, Dana helped me feel respected. About a month before we graduated, I finally met her dad. He took us out for dinner, mainly to meet me. Dana had gone through a number of boyfriends, so when she settled down, he paid attention. I was impressed by him. I thought he would be just an old athlete with leftover money, but he was a strong businessman with clear goals. He asked me to come in for a meeting before I accepted any job offers after graduation. I ended up working for Navaro right after school, and at first it was really hard. I didn't understand why, but Kurt had a plan for me. I guess I had made a bigger impression than I thought. Fresh out of school, I started at Navaro Logistics, but my job was not what I expected. I was a midnight shift truck loader, the lowest position there. I felt like my career was going nowhere, but it was a paycheck, about what I would earn as a new salesman or account manager, so I decided to stick with it for a while because I didn't want to upset Dana's dad. Dana, on the other hand, was angry. She called her dad every day, upset that I had to load trucks with my business degree. She also complained that my night shifts made it hard for us to date. After a few weeks, I became the best truck loader at our place. I could tell how to stack boxes better to fit more on a truck. The foreman often gave me important loads to stack and praised me to his boss. One night while I was working, I got a new partner, a guy I'd never seen before. He was fast, and I couldn't see his face well because he wore a hat that covered it. As we loaded, he asked me, "Why do you plan so much about where to put things instead of just tossing them in and moving on? You could be quicker and help the company." "I'm pretty fast already," I replied. "Oh, I see," he said. "You work just fast enough to stay ahead, but not so fast that you wear yourself out. That's smart." "That's not really it," I said. He looked confused. "What's the costliest thing to ship?" I asked him. He thought for a moment and said, "Probably heavy metal parts." "Nope," I answered. He thought again and finally said, "Okay, I give up." "Air," I told him, and he looked even more confused. "The more I fit on a truck, the fewer trucks we need to pay for. Any empty space on a truck costs the company more than the few seconds it takes me to fill it," I explained. We finished the load quietly. I thought I had given him something to think about. After that, I worked alone since we were assigned to different trucks. When my shift ended, I was told to go to the office. My boss handed me a stack of papers and told me he would miss me. I felt upset because I knew Dana would be angry, but I had tried my best. On the bright side, I figured I could go out and find a real job. As I looked through the paper, it hit me. I hadn't been fired. I had been promoted, and it was a big promotion. I jumped over several jobs to become the loading dock manager. Now I was above not only my old foreman but also his boss, the loading dock supervisor. I would be doing this new job at another place across town, and it was during the day. I drove to Dana's apartment to share the good news, but she wasn't home. I didn't feel comfortable in her apartment alone, so I decided to go back home and get some sleep. As I got into my car, I noticed another car pull up in front of the building. Dana got out and kissed a guy. I was stunned and didn't know how to react, so I just sat there. Eventually, I went home and went to bed. It was Friday morning, and I needed to get used to the day shift, so I took a quick nap and woke up around noon. I went out and got a haircut. I had received a bonus for my new job, so I bought a couple of suits that would match my new position. Until then, I used to finish work at 8 a.m., sleep until about 4, and then Dana and I would hang out. We usually spent time together from 4 until I had to go to work. There were many days when Dana would climb into bed with me and surprise me in the morning. So around 3:30, when my cell phone rang, I knew it was her. I just let the call go to voicemail along with the others. I called my friend Tom and made plans to go out for drinks that evening. I had one more stop to make before heading home. Less than an hour later, I was taken into an office that was bigger than my apartment. "Mr. Navaro, thanks for coming," I started. "First, I want to say thank you for the promotion." I added, "But I'm confused about it." "You're wondering if I promoted you because of my daughter?" he asked. That had crossed my mind, I admitted. "Jason, I care deeply for my daughter and my sons," he said. "I want to make sure they are taken care of when I'm not around. To do that, I need to know my business is in good hands." He walked over to a framed picture of Dana. "Do you see my daughter running my business?" he asked. "She could learn," I replied. "She's smart and good with people." "You sound like someone in love," he said. "But you only mentioned her good traits. Her brothers are much worse. I saw how you helped my daughter with her accounting class." "You saved me a lot of trouble," he continued. "Professor McQueen is a tough man, but you helped her succeed, and she cares for you, too." He paused, thinking for a moment. "My daughter likes you, and she probably wants to marry you. But I wanted to know more about you myself," he said. "So instead of giving you an easy, quick job, I put you in a tough spot. I wanted you to learn my business from the bottom up. I put you through hard work, and you still came out shining," he said. "What you told me last night showed me that you understand things even better than I hoped." "When did we talk last night?" I asked, confused. "When we loaded that truck together," he said, revealing a hat he had worn to hide himself. "For the last 3 weeks, I've heard about how great you were doing," he said. "I wanted to see it myself. I sometimes help out with loading trucks to remember where I started. Now I know I'm right." He smiled, and I could see he still had the drive that makes great people great, just in business instead of sports. "I tried this with my sons," he said. "Neither lasted an hour. They have jobs here with fancy titles, but they really don't matter. You impressed me, so you earned this promotion on your own," he said. "It has nothing to do with Dana. Let's see what you can do from here." I left the building feeling thrilled, but also sad. The promotion was amazing, and I was proud of it. But I knew it might be short-lived because Dana and I were over. We weren't married or engaged, so what she did wasn't cheating in a legal sense. Yet I couldn't accept it. I didn't even know what had happened. All I saw was her kissing another guy when she got out of his car. Maybe he just picked her up, and that was a thank you kiss for the ride. It was unlikely, but possible. Dana and I had a lot to talk about, and I wasn't in a rush. But I needed to find out what was going on, and I had an idea. I went to Dana's apartment to watch for her and make sure she wasn't outside. I talked to the doorman, Ernie. He was a nice guy who sometimes filled me in on Dana's troubles in the building. Like me, he was working his way through college. He often told me how lucky I was to be with Dana. "I'm sorry, but I can't help with that." I gasped as I felt a rush of sensations when she moved closer. The light touch of her skin was almost too much to handle. As we kissed, she was guiding me carefully inside her. The moisture was almost unnecessary as she was already wet. With one quick move, we became one. The surprise of it almost overwhelmed me before we got started. Dana let out a soft gasp, and it was clear she was enjoying it, just as much as I was. We kissed passionately, allowing our bodies to get used to the intense feelings. After a moment, Dana began to move slowly up and down on top of me, her muscles tightening around me. Dana had a way of making every move feel special. Soon we were both sweaty, caught in a wave of excitement. With one last deep move, we both reached a peak together. This moment should have made me think clearly, but it didn't. I never found out if Dana was being honest about her faithfulness, but I loved her so much that I wanted to trust her. Dana needed to be the center of attention, and when she didn't get that, she would act out. 2 days later, I started my new job while Dana found ways to enjoy my new paycheck. The new work schedule meant we could spend more time together, and we forgot about our earlier bump in the road. In my mind, I felt like I had won a prize, waiting to wake up from this dream, but I wasn't complaining while things were good. At work, everything went perfectly. Over the next few months, I improved the loading process, making it faster and saving the company money. Almost as soon as I settled into my office, I got another promotion. Some people said I was moving up because I was dating Dana, but those who knew me understood it was my hard work. I started dropping by with Kurt, my old boss, to load trucks and remember where I began. It helped keep me humble. A few weeks ago, I had worked alongside Kurt, who complained that since I had made the loading system digital, anyone could do it as well as I used to. "You've taken away the skill," he said. "Yeah, but you're making a lot more money," I replied. As we continued working, I shared my idea about making the routing system digital too. Right now, we were using lots of maps and papers. I believed that if we computerized it, it would help us work better and save even more money. After an hour of talking, Kurt told me to go for it. At Thanksgiving, I broke Kurt's usual rule about not talking business during dinner. I explained my idea about starting a new company for truck rentals. We always bought trucks, but selling them after reaching a certain mileage. I suggested that with a couple of my co-workers, we make a new company called Navaro Truck Rentals to earn more from our vehicles. Kurt loved it and wanted to know who my partners were. He said we could start after checking their backgrounds, but he wanted me to still be with the main company. "You don't need to check them," I said. "Who are they?" he joked. "Jesus and Moses." "No," I laughed. "You'd still want to check them." "Then who?" he asked seriously. "George and Kurt Jr.," I replied. The mood got more serious, and we answered Kurt's questions quickly. He thought it was a good idea and would review our plan after the holiday. I could tell he was excited and liked the idea of his sons being involved. The highlight of that Thanksgiving dinner was Dana's big news. She and I were engaged. Everything seemed perfect. My career was thriving, and I was in love with a wonderful woman. We got married, bought a house, took trips, and enjoyed life together. About 7 years later, everything changed. I had just returned from a work trip to Chicago. I wasn't supposed to be home until Friday, but I surprised Dana by coming back on Thursday. As I drove into our driveway, I noticed an unfamiliar car. I thought maybe Dana had a friend over. Great. I wanted to spend time with her, and now there was someone else there. As I walked up the stairs, I heard a man's voice say, "Take it. You know you want it." Then I heard a woman's response, oh." I recognized that voice too well, and my heart dropped. I threw open the door to the guest room and saw Tim Pritchet, a guy from school with Dana. At first, I was too shocked to react. When Pritchet noticed me, his eyes widened in surprise and he started making excuses. "It's not what it looks like, Jason," he stammered. But as soon as Dana heard my name, she screamed. That snapped me out of my shock and I sprang into action. I grabbed Pritchet by the neck and pulled him off the bed. I hit him in the face and then pushed his head into the wall. I heard something crack. Then I dragged him down the stairs by one leg and kicked him out my front door, and he was still naked. After closing the door, I went back upstairs. Dana was still sleeping on the bed. She smelled terrible, like beer or cheap liquor. I wasn't sure which. I couldn't believe she was asleep while I was dealing with her boyfriend. I packed a suitcase for her and went downstairs to put it in her car. But her Lexus wasn't in the driveway or garage. I went back inside and found Pritchet's keys in his coat. I stuffed Dana's suitcase in the trunk of his car. As I started to go back in, I saw Pritchet hiding in my bushes, looking upset. When I walked toward him, he ran off, but I caught him easily and turned him to face me. I was glad the hedges were there. I didn't want anyone seeing me with a crying naked man. "Please don't hit me again, I'm sorry," he cried. "You weren't supposed to come home. Dana said it was okay." "I'm not going to hit you," I said, "but why are you still here?" "I can't leave. I don't have my keys and I'm naked," he said, sniffling. "What would you do to get your keys back?" I asked. "I'll do anything," he replied. "Stay right there," I told him. I went upstairs and got my new camcorder. I recorded Pritchet admitting that I found him in bed with Dana and that it wasn't the first time they had been together. Then I picked Dana up from the guest room and carried her downstairs. I covered her with a sheet out of respect for her parents. After that, I uploaded the video to my computer and emailed it to her dad. I told Pritchet to take her straight to her parents' house and not to stop for anything. I reminded him that I still had his wallet and knew where he lived. Then I gave him back his keys and watched him drive away. I sat down at my computer and wrote my resignation letter to Kurt. I copied a couple of others that relied on me, including my brothers-in-law. After that, I called Tom and went out for a beer. On Friday morning, things got crazy before I even woke up. Someone was knocking on the front door, the phone was ringing, my cell was buzzing, and my computer was alerting me of emails. I peeked out the window and saw Dana at the door. I put on some jeans and a shirt, grabbed my wallet and keys, and rushed to the bathroom. I quickly shaved and brushed my teeth to look decent. After that, I went through the kitchen door into my garage. I jumped into my favorite car, a bright yellow Mustang GT. I started the engine and pressed the button to open the garage door. Just then, Dana ran in as I was about to leave. "Jason, we need to talk," she said. "Dana, we should probably let our lawyers handle this," I replied. "Why do we need lawyers?" she asked. "Dana, are you serious?" "I caught you with Tim Pritchet," I said. "I was drunk and lonely," she whined. "He said this isn't the first time, Dana," I told her. "And you've left me alone before, too," she shot back. "But just because I go away for work, that gives you the right to break our vows?" I said. She looked down at the ground, not saying anything. "I promise I won't do it again," she said softly. "You promised me that before," I replied. "Ask your mom or your brothers to come pick up your things. I'll be home tomorrow." I shifted the car back into gear and started to drive off. I added, "And Dana, don't come with them. I don't want to see you until we meet in court." I drove away, leaving her crying. I spent the whole day driving around and making phone calls. I found a good divorce lawyer and discussed how I wanted to proceed. I decided not to touch any of our belongings because I wanted to be fair. I figured we'd work it all out once I knew who was on her side. As I left my lawyer's office, I got a call from Verna, Dana's mom. "How are you doing, Jay?" she asked, sounding very concerned. "I can come over Monday with a truck to get Dana's things, but it may be better if she picks them up while you're at work," she suggested. "Sure, Verna, I'll do whatever you need," I said. I've always respected her. "Just let me know when you're coming." "No, you have a big meeting Monday," she replied. "Besides, Dana isn't taking everything, just some clothes and personal things." I was confused. "Why not all of it?" I asked. "Because she's planning to fight the divorce," Verna said. "And Kurt didn't accept your resignation," she added. "Jay, I know this is hard, but can you come over for dinner tonight? We need to talk." I agreed to go over that evening, hoping to clear the air. When I arrived, Verna hugged me warmly. During dinner, Kurt suddenly yelled, "What's this nonsense about you quitting?" "I figured it wouldn't look good for my career if I was fired," I explained. "I thought it would be best if I quit," I said. "This way you didn't have to let me go, and my job record stays good." "Forget that," he replied. "I care about my daughter a lot," he continued. "But you didn't do anything wrong, either with her or at work. What do you think made her act like this?" he asked. "I wish I knew," I said. "If I did, I would have stopped it." "Just so you know," he said, "we are not getting involved in this. We won't take sides," he added. "You both have to sort it out by yourselves." Kurt kept his promise. He didn't let the company's lawyers help Dana, but she found a really great divorce lawyer. I thought, if he's this good, the divorce will be quick. But a quick divorce was not what they planned. Dana's lawyer had a different idea. He was really skilled, but also very costly, and I had to pay for him because Kurt was not helping Dana. "She's your wife, not mine," he told me. Dana's lawyer used many tricks to delay the process. He missed meetings and postponed them. He also filed a lot of paperwork with the court, including one that shocked me. He claimed that Dana, who had more money than me due to her trust fund, was homeless and should stay in our house until the court made a decision. He warned me that if I moved out, I could be seen as abandoning her and might lose my house. Then the court said we had to go to counseling. We had to do individual therapy first, then couples therapy. I was told I was fine. Dana had many troubles, including drinking too much and feeling bad about herself, always needing attention. The day Dana moved back in, our big house felt much smaller. She followed me everywhere. So that week, I spent a lot of time at work. One night, as I lay in bed, Dana came into the room wearing only very little. She crawled in beside me. Even though I was angry with her, I couldn't help but notice how she looked. Frustrated, I threw the covers off and went into another room. The next night, I started out alone, but after I fell asleep, she slipped into bed with me and wrapped her legs around mine. I dreamt vividly about her, and when I woke up, I found her in bed with me, her hands in my boxers. She smiled but didn't move. I got up and locked the door behind me. Every morning I went to work while Dana attended her therapy and meetings. Each morning she would give me the same speech. "Good morning, Jason. I love you. I always have. I'm sorry for what I did. I wasn't myself. Please forgive me," she would say. "I'll do anything to make things right." "Do you really mean that?" I asked one morning, feeling upset. "Yes," she said quickly. "Then Dana," I said sincerely, "let me go. Let the divorce happen. You can have everything. I'll just leave." "I'll do better," I said. "I'll sign a paper saying it was my fault. Just let me go," I asked. "2 words, my husband," she said. "Ne and ver. Never. You will never be free of me." I was stunned by how fiercely she said it. I imagined various nightmares, many of which involved being stuck, forever paying for something I didn't understand, with Dana as a twisted, seductive version of a tormentor. "And if I can have everything, why can't I just have you?" she asked, pouting like a child who wanted to keep their treat. "I meant all our things," I said. "I don't want any of this stuff," she replied. "I just want you back." A few nights later, I woke up in the middle of the night to find Dana close to me again. I moved away, but soon realized she had keys to every room. "Look, Dana," I said, "you can share a room with me, but you can't touch me." "So we can sleep together?" she asked cheerfully. "Yes," I said, "as long as you stay away from me." The next night, Dana came to bed wrapped in a warm flannel robe. We settled in, but she rolled over close to me without touching me. I felt her warmth all night, which drove me mad. The next morning, I woke up with a strong feeling of attraction. I quickly got up to take a cold shower while she laughed. "I'm sorry," I said. "I was asleep." "I wasn't," she said. "I know someone who could help you with that," she said, pointing at my reaction. I quickly showered and left, but not before she gave me her usual speech. Later that night, Dana made a big effort. I was watching TV when she walked in wearing her tiny thong panties just to tease me. "Do you mind if I watch?" she asked. "Dana, there are many TVs in this house," I said. "Jason, I won't touch you and I'm not going anywhere, so we should try to get along," she said. "Fine," I replied. For the next 10 minutes, Dana kept bending over in front of me, doing things that were very distracting. I couldn't take it anymore and left the room. When I got into bed, she was already there. She moved over to give me space, and we settled in for the night. Around midnight, I thought I heard my name. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Dana. "I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that. I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that. I'm telling you I won't ever cheat on you again," she promised. "Dana, we just slept together," I replied. "It wasn't like you didn't want it. So just because we had a moment together, it doesn't mean we have to be together forever," I said. "Maybe not usually," she answered. "But I didn't mind, and I did ask you for it," she continued. "If you want, we could do it again right now or whenever you feel like," she said with a grin. "How about we go to my dad's house? We could do it on the dining room table," she added, still smiling. "Or even better, we could have some fun during the next meeting at work," she laughed. "We belong to you again, and that's what matters," she said. "What are you talking about?" I asked. I was starting to feel uneasy. "Since I came back, you've seen me running around without any clothes and acting all wild," she explained. "I also stopped using birth control, and you know how money can buy a lot of things?" She smiled at me like a villain in a movie. "I got a doctor to give me some fertility medicine, like what women take when they can't get pregnant," she said. "So now all 3 of us are yours, me, my body, and your baby," she smirked. And you're not the kind of guy to leave your own kid, she added. So we'll be stuck together for at least the next 20 years, she said with another big smile. And I know you love me, even if you're really mad right now. I believe that love will win and we'll be happy again, she said, her smile fading just a bit as she spoke. All I needed was something to fill my days while you're at work, she said. So no more cheating for me because I'll have you, and when you're not here, I'll have our baby. Dana looked at me with an annoying grin. I didn't know how to respond. I love you, Jason. I won't let you go, she said happily, then added, It's over. I quickly stepped away from her. She just sat there, still wearing that smug smile. Don't be so upset, dear. I promise I won't hurt you again. I've been really unhappy since we broke up, and I never want to feel that way again, she said. I was really close to hitting her in that moment, but I didn't. I took a fast shower and got dressed. I'll see you when you get back, honey, she said, smiling at me. Then she actually had the nerve to touch herself. I was really angry with myself. I needed to think, so I jumped into my yellow Mustang and drove away. After driving around in the dark for a while, I realized I was hungry, so I ended up in the parking lot of a cheap little hot dog place. As I walked in, the smell of old grease and the sight of flies reminded me of places I used to eat before I met Dana. I ordered chili and a hot dog from the board guy behind the counter. His name tag read Flo, which made me want to laugh because he didn't look like a Florence at all. The only other people there were two tired-looking women who seemed to be struggling in their line of work. They looked like they were past their prime, gaining weight, and wearing way too much makeup. They looked more like clowns than anyone you'd want to impress. To be honest, at that moment, I'd rather spend time with one of them than be with Dana again. As the women were leaving, they glanced at me. Sorry, ladies, my soon-to-be ex-wife took all my money in the divorce, I said. Well, I could give you a freebie since money isn't a problem, said the taller one. Yeah, but she still has my pride, I joked. They shrugged and walked off into the night. Suddenly, I heard a loud, roaring engine pull into the lot. I briefly thought someone was trying to steal my car, but then I saw the headlights shine right next to me. It was a weird coincidence, I thought. A guy came into the restaurant, scanning the place like he was looking for trouble. He had a tough look in his eyes, like someone who has seen a lot in life. He sat near me even though there were plenty of empty tables. He called out to the guy behind the counter. 2 hot dogs with everything and pickles, he ordered, before sitting down. The pickles are great, he said when he noticed me staring. What model? I asked. 08 Charcoal Gray GT, he replied. 06 Screaming Yellow GT, I said back. I like your color, he said. Sometimes I wish I had yours. It's hard to hide in a bright yellow Mustang, I admitted. Hiding sounds nice right now, he said. Yeah, but we can't run forever, I began, just like our cars. How's that? He asked as the cook handed him his bag of food. Well, look at the front. There's that horse, the running pony, I explained. That horse is a symbol of freedom, right? I continued. But if you look at the horse, it isn't running away, I said while looking at him. That little pony is charging right into the action, and that's who we are, I added. So whoever they are, I paused, be like that Mustang, run straight at them and give it your all. I noticed he sat up a bit straighter than when he first arrived, and he revved his engine loudly as he left the parking lot. I took off not long after he did. My words echoed in my mind. Hiding from my problems would not get me anywhere. I had to face them, so I knew I needed to go to Dana like she was a challenge. I wouldn't let her control my life. I had to find out if she was pregnant. If she was, it meant I was tied to her for at least 20 years. I had read about how kids from divorced homes could turn out, and I didn't want that for my child. But if by some chance she wasn't, things were going to get very chilly for everyone involved. As I drove through the dim morning streets in the area called the Block, I saw many things. I saw what I first thought were women, but they weren't. Then I saw things that didn't look like women, but they were. I came across hundreds of workers on the street. Some looked fresh, like college girls sneaking out of their dorms. Others looked so lost in drugs that they might not make it through the night. There were even older women walking the streets, looking as out of place as antlers on an elephant. Then suddenly, without really thinking, I hit the brakes hard. If I hadn't, she would have been hit. I was probably going 40 in a 25 miles per hour zone. She stood frozen, surprised by how close she came to my car. She looked like a scared deer caught in my headlights. She seemed about 20 or 22, maybe even younger, and she was stunning. It was hard to tell if she knew how beautiful she was or didn't care. Her long, thick, wavy red hair was bright with yellow highlights, almost looking like a fire when the car lights hit it. I couldn't see her eyes well from a distance, but they were striking. Her lips were full and inviting, meant for sharing a kiss. Her body was impressive. She was curvier than Dana. And I'm not talking about anything fake. These were real features, not just for show. She wore a jacket that stopped at her waist, and even in her tight jeans, her shape was fantastic. There was something about her that just felt wrong for this place. It was like finding a beautiful angel statue in a pile of trash. You just wanted to show it to the world. I imagined her as a queen who had somehow ended up here. I expected her first words to be grand and noble, like, "Let them eat cake." But I was both let down and angry when her words shattered my thoughts. "Dumbass!" she shouted. "Watch where you're going, idiot!" "Stupid girl!" I yelled back as I drove off, ending that daydream. I spent the next few hours driving around and returned home as the sun rose. I went upstairs and found Dana in the bedroom. She hadn't done much since I left. She was sprawled on our bed with a mess on her. The room smelled bad, so I opened a window, hoping some fresh air could change things. I went to the bathroom and started filling the tub, then headed to the kitchen for coffee. I took Dana to the bathroom, and she woke up as I carried her. "Where are you taking me?" she asked, as I gently set her in the warm tub filled with her favorite bubbles. "Oh, that feels nice," she said with a smile. "I thought you might be really mad, but don't worry," she said. "We're going to be happy together." "I know it was another mistake, but it's for a good reason. I got the idea from a show," she said. "Don't kiss me," she warned. "My breath is awful." I believed her because she had just done something very messy. It was funny because kissing her was the last thing I wanted. "My body is sore, but there's a nice feeling down below that I missed," she said, touching my face. "I only feel that with you." I went downstairs and got her a cup of coffee and her toothbrush. "What will you do while I'm at work?" I asked her, pretending to care. "Oh, first I'm going to relax and recover," she said. "Then I'll think about which room to turn into a nursery. I want to choose baby stuff, but it'll be hard until we know if it's a boy or a girl. Then I decided to make myself look nice for when you come home. I need to start working out and taking care of myself so that I can stay in shape after we have our kids," she said. "I don't want to become a wife who you wouldn't want to be with anymore because you don't find me attractive." I was shocked. Did she really say, "our kids"? "What do you want me to wear tonight?" she asked. I almost said something silly, but I stopped myself. "You don't need to wear anything for me," was what I actually told her. "Oh, so you want me to be naked again," she said, leaving me confused about what she thought I meant. "Okay," she replied softly. "But tonight can we make love instead of just having sex?" "I might still feel a bit sore," she said with a small pout. I realized I just didn't understand her. What did I say that made her think we would be intimate again? I changed into a suit and left for the office. I worked out of our main corporate building now. Kurt had a nice corner office, and so did I. I also had another office across town for our growing truck rental business. We were also renting out passenger cars and had a leasing program for company vehicles. I had a few meetings that day, including one with the board of directors. I talked about my trip from last week and what our plans were. I shared that I wanted to open offices in Canada for both our logistics and rental companies soon, and then look to expand into Europe. It was time for our company to grow globally. One director asked why we weren't looking at South America first. I explained that while South America, especially Mexico, might seem close and sensible, the problems there right now made it too risky. The directors were impressed when I showed them slides with information on crime rates and recent attacks on tourists that were happening regularly. After lunch, I spent time searching for condos and lofts online. Around 2 p.m., Kurt stopped by to see me. He had heard good things about my board meeting and liked my plans for growth. We also discussed my suggestion to replace Tyler Kriskos as the CEO of the truck rental business with George and promote Kurt Jr. to the COO position. I explained that Tyler was nice but was just given the job because he was an old friend of Kurt. He had reached his limit in the logistics company since Kurt was the CEO now, and I had taken Tyler's old COO role. George and Junior have run this company since we started, I said. It's time for them to take charge. Tyler is always a step behind. He spends more time playing golf than working, I added. I know, said Kurt. I play with him every day. Should I step back too? He joked. There's no one here ready to take your place, sir, I said. It'll be a few years before George and Junior are ready for the big picture, I said. I wasn't talking about them, he replied, though I'm proud of my boys. I appreciate how you push them to grow. Then he broke our rule about personal talk at work. How are you holding up? Are you still upset about Dana? I still love her, but we just keep hurting each other, I said. I think it would be best if she moved out, or let me go. You should just do it, he advised. A few hours later, I toured an empty loft downtown by the river. It was perfect. The walls were brick, and there was carpet everywhere except the kitchen, which had hardwood floors. A chrome staircase led up to the sleeping area and a second bathroom. It was one big room, nearly as big as some houses. How many parking spaces do I get? I asked the manager. How many do you need? He replied, looking at me oddly. I need at least 2, but 3 would be better, I said. $200 a month for each extra space, he said. I also have a bigger unit on the ground floor that has its own garage door. You could literally drive into your own living room, he added, still looking at me strangely. I'll take it, I said, writing him a check for the first and last month's rent, plus a security deposit. I probably won't move in right away because I need to buy furniture and work out some details with my wife's lawyers, I said. Ah, now I see why you need extra parking, he said. They're all for me. I'm leaving my wife soon, I replied as I walked away. Over the next few weeks, I lived 2 lives. At work, I was the same Jason. I spent some time each day decorating my loft, but everything else was normal. At night, I was acting like the best partner. I treated Dana like she was special. I did everything she wanted. We went to parties with her smug friends, and I pretended to enjoy myself. Then we returned home and spent time together. The only thing she didn't like was that I insisted on using protection when we were intimate. I told her I wouldn't be without it until we were sure she hadn't caught anything from Tim. We didn't want to put the baby at risk by spreading germs between us. At first, she didn't like my decision, but somehow she believed that being intimate was very important for us as a couple. She told me at least 20 times each day how much she loved me and how sorry she was. She understood that it would take time for me to trust her again and to share my feelings. But she was patient and willing to wait for me. Dana changed a lot. She did everything I wanted without a second thought. There was nothing she wouldn't try. One time I jokingly mentioned I was curious about something unusual. When I got home, I found rubber sheets on the bed and floor. When she greeted me at the door, wearing just a smile, I couldn't help but feel drawn to her. Little did she know we were both hoping for the same thing. Then one morning, while we were having breakfast, the phone rang. I picked it up without thinking. Hey, Jason, said the voice. It's Ralph Derrico. I have some bad news. He paused, then continued. I just got her test results back. My heart stopped for a moment. Derrico was Dana's doctor. I had asked him to check if I was the father, but I didn't expect the results so soon. I was secretly hoping the baby might be someone else's. You'll just have to try again, he said. But at least you're both healthy. What? I replied, feeling confused. I guess he thought I was angry or upset. Look, it's not the end of the world, he said. Donna isn't pregnant. You can still try again. I hung up and looked at Dana as she ate her breakfast. She was beautiful, but just like a pretty flower, she had hidden dangers. I thought, why not one more time? Dana knew I liked looking at her, so she often kept the house warm and walked around almost without clothes. She was tall and slim, with a perfect figure. I took the toast from her hand, stood her up, and pulled her close, lifting her onto the kitchen counter. She wrapped her legs around me and we kissed. I loved kissing her neck. It drove her wild. I could tell she was getting excited. I didn't make her wait long. I grabbed a condom from my robe. Come on, I'm ready, she said. Just a moment later, we were together. Dana always enjoyed being close, but lately, it felt like she wanted it all the time. Sometimes I thought I couldn't keep up. She had read that many women feel more desire when they might be pregnant, and I think she believed she was having a baby. We even picked out names, Kurt for a boy and Verna for a girl. That morning was special, to say the least. I left Dana smiling on the kitchen floor with a happy look on her face. "That was so good," she called to me as I stepped into the shower. "We'll need more condoms," she said, her voice carrying over the water. "No, we won't," I called back. "Do you want to try something different?" she asked. I didn't really like it, but I'm willing to try again if you want. "Not today," I said as I got dressed. "Why don't we need more?" she wondered. "Because we're both healthy," I replied. "Was that the doctor on the phone?" she asked as I grabbed my briefcase. "Yes," I said. "Oh, so we can be together without protection," she said, a playful smile on her face. I looked deep into her eyes and said, "That's not why I'm happy." I kissed her deeply, making her breathless. "Take the day off and be with me more," she said, her voice filled with longing. "I can't," I told her. "I have a meeting." "Well, I know someone who will," she said teasingly. "Tell Tim to enjoy it," I replied. She looked hurt. "I haven't seen Tim or anyone else since," she said, leaving out the part about being caught with him. "We're starting our family now," she insisted. "Maybe this isn't how you wanted it, but it's our new beginning. You have to admit the last 3 weeks have been great. I love you so much. Let's forget the past," she continued. "The future is about us and our baby." "That's why I had to play all those games with you," she said. "I knew you still loved me and it wasn't really hard. Every guy I've met always wanted something from me, but you're the only one I want," she continued. "I regret tricking you, but we're happy again now, I promise. I won't do it again." "Dana, if every guy wants you, then you don't really need me," I said with a smile. "What are you talking about?" she replied. "And I have a question for you. If the doctor said we don't have any diseases, why did you use condoms?" she asked. "Because I wanted to be safe and you're not pregnant," I said. Dana's face fell as I walked out the door. That was 8 months ago, and I'm still very careful. Dana sometimes comes to my work and talks about getting back together or how much she misses me. She makes it clear that even though we're divorced, she feels we still belong to each other. My divorce happened a while back, and I've been living a quiet life ever since. I go to work and stay there most of the time, then go home to sleep and shower before heading back. That's my routine every day. Even Kurt has told me to take a break. After he heard what Dana did, he was lost for words. I found myself trying to explain why I thought she acted that way. Some single and divorced women at work have tried to introduce me to friends or family they think would be perfect for me. I refuse to date or even be friends with any women. But lately, the loneliness has hit me hard. My mood got worse, and I kept thinking about the adult movies I owned. I was craving something, even if it was just a one-night thing. I didn't want to go to an escort service because I didn't want any records of it. If I was going to do this, it needed to be quick, cheap, and simple. That's how I ended up on the street. The Mustang roared as I pressed on the gas, eager to hit the road. I looked around and saw a thin woman in a hoodie waving from the shadows. No way, not interested. There was a woman across the street who looked okay, but she was a blonde. Been there, done that, and got hurt from it. A couple of heavier women looked like they were ready for a feast, but no thanks. Then I heard a loud scream further up the street. The sound made me want to investigate. I quickly turned the wheel and hit the gas to get a better look. I saw a redhead with a loud mouth in trouble. 2 guys who looked out of place were trying to pull her into their car. "Hey!" I shouted to them as I got out of my car. I might not be big or scary, but I looked serious enough to make them run away. When they let her go, she stumbled to the ground. I stepped over to help her up. She stared at my hand like it was dangerous. "What do you want?" she asked, sounding annoyed. "I didn't need your help. I don't know why you bothered. I'm not giving you anything." "Why are you out here?" I asked her. "With that attitude, you're not going to make any money. It's like you're trying to push people away." I turned to leave when I spotted some cars coming fast. They looked like police cars. I made a move for my Mustang without saying anything. She got up and followed me, almost like a scared animal sensing danger. As I closed my door, I looked at her and opened the passenger door. She got in, and we sped away, kicking up dirt behind us. I kept my eyes on the road and on the rearview mirror. Sure enough, just a few blocks later, police cars lit up the street behind us. "How did you know? Are you a cop?" she asked, eyeing me with suspicion. "I didn't ask you for anything." I'm not a cop, I said, hoping that would end it. Then why are you here? She pressed. You don't look like someone who needs to pick up a woman, so that means... She hugged her jacket tighter and moved away slightly. So that means what? I asked, curious. It means you're looking for something that a normal girl can't do, she said. I should have guessed. The good-looking ones are usually the biggest freaks. I don't do anything strange, so you might as well just let me out right here. What do you do? I asked. You can't have done much since you still look okay. Except for your bad attitude, you don't seem to belong here either. Why are you asking so many questions? Are you a reporter or something? Just pull this car over and let me out, she shouted. Or else what? I replied sharply. The only sound in the car was the rumble of the Mustang's engine as I sped down the ramp onto the freeway. In moments, we were going close to 100 miles an hour. I didn't have to worry much about police since they were probably busy dealing with other problems back there. I noticed she looked scared with what was happening, so I decided to add to her fear a bit. If you behave, you might just make it through this, I said. Her amazing green eyes showed real fear. I thought to myself that people with bad attitudes sometimes just needed a little scare. But then I felt guilty. Maybe her attitude was just a way to protect herself. Life on the streets must have been tough. 20 minutes later, I reached into the glove box and took out my remote control. She flinched as my hand got close to her legs. Why would she be scared? Something felt off. As we got to my building, I pressed a button on the remote and the garage door opened. We drove inside and the door started to close behind us. I parked my Mustang next to my red Jeep. Then I got out and opened her door. The fans turned on to warm up my loft, a feature that activated whenever the garage door opened. I preferred driving right into my living room instead of using the inside door. I stepped onto the soft carpet and held her hand, pulling her in with me. She looked around the loft, curious about everything. Okay, what do you want from me? She asked quietly. I just need a simple business deal, I said. Isn't that why you were out there? What I want might be different from what you're used to, but I promise to pay you fairly. You might even like it. I watched her as I spoke. She sat on the edge of one of my leather sofas, looking nervous. Something I said seemed to affect her, but I didn't know how. Suddenly, she was crying and pleading. Oh, please, just let me go. I'm not really a prostitute. I just thought I could earn some quick money to eat. I'll never go back out there. Please let me go, she cried. I started laughing and almost fell off my couch, but then I looked at her again. Her beautiful red hair fell in lovely waves around her shoulders. Her eyes, even filled with fear, were captivating. I wanted to hug her and say everything would be all right, but I hesitated, unsure of how she would respond. Look at you, acting tough, I said with a smirk. Now you seem more like a scared little girl. I'm not a little girl, she shot back. I'm 23 and I've been on my own for a while, and yes, I am a prostitute. She looked like she was trying to take pride in it or maybe feel ashamed. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out 2 small papers. One was a faded driver's license from Michigan, showing she had just turned 23. The other was a ticket for solicitation from just 2 days ago. What a birthday, I thought. So how did you get caught? I asked her, genuinely curious. But before she could answer, I heard a loud growling noise. Not from me, those hot dogs I had weren't that bad. Come on into the kitchen, I said gently, reaching for her. She was still scared, but maybe my tone told her I wouldn't hurt her. She took my hand, and I led her to the kitchen. I wasn't much of a cook, but I could grill a good steak and toss a salad now and then. I opened a cabinet full of soup cans and pulled out my favorite sirloin burger. After pouring it into a bowl and putting it in the microwave, I got a soda from the fridge and set it in front of her. When the timer beeped, I handed her the bowl and a spoon. Sorry, that's all I have for now, I said. She nodded and started eating. She finished the whole bowl and looked satisfied, but didn't say anything. It was clear I had to take the next step. I don't have any clothes for you, but if you want to take a bath or shower, I can lend you some of my things, I suggested softly. Then we can talk and you can tell me more about yourself. Oh, I see what you're doing, she snapped. You think I just want to get clean so you can check me out while I'm naked, then do something terrible. You're really disgusting. But I want you to know this won't be easy for you. I will fight you with everything I have. You might think you'll get what you want in the end, but it's not going to be what you think. Just because I work in a certain way doesn't mean you can hold me against my will." I didn't respond. I just laughed. I jumped up and ran to my car to grab the remote. There was also a switch on the wall that could open the doors, but I decided to keep that a secret for now. I gave the remote to her. "All right, Miss P, you have the remote. Just push the button and leave. I don't want to hurt you. I told you earlier, I want to make a deal. That means I say what I want, then we talk about the price until we agree on something that's fair for both of us. If we can't agree, we both walk away." I took the remote back from her and pressed the button myself. The door began to open and I said, "You know how to get out." As cool night air came in, I noticed the temperature drop and the big heaters turned on. She looked outside and I could tell she didn't know what to do. "Please go," I said. "You're letting all the cold in." She shivered in her jacket and moved toward the door. "Are you really just going to let me leave?" she asked. "Can you hurry?" I responded. "It takes longer to warm this place up if the door stays open." She quickly walked to the door and glanced back at me. I had turned on my big TV and was starting a movie. I noticed her looking at me as the door started to close. It had been an interesting evening, and honestly, I had experienced worse. 5 minutes later, I was enjoying my movie and really getting into it. The sound system was on, and I wondered why I didn't do things just for fun more often. No wonder people thought I was a bit unstable. I didn't have much of a life. I was so busy trying to get Dana out of my mind that I'd forgotten how to enjoy myself. Suddenly, I heard a loud noise. At first, I thought something was wrong with my speakers. I paused the movie and realized the sound continued. Someone was banging on my garage door. I walked slowly to the door and looked through the small glass peephole. It was the woman with red hair. She was shivering outside. I pressed the button to open the door, and when it opened halfway, she ducked inside and I closed it again. "Do I get to say no if your idea is too strange for me?" she asked, her voice shaky. "What do you mean?" I asked. "About your offer or proposal, whatever you want to call it," she replied, sounding a bit sharp. I just nodded. "Can I take a warm bath first?" she asked, chattering. Eating warm food and then going out into the cold made it worse. "Since we're going to be together anyway, I guess it's fine for you to watch me while I'm in the tub." "Victoria, I don't have any cameras in the bathroom," I said. Suddenly, she seemed cautious. "How did you know my name?" she asked, eyeing me suspiciously. "You showed me your driver's license earlier," I said quietly. "Oh, sorry," she replied softly. I realized I liked her voice more when she wasn't yelling. I took her hand and led her upstairs to the sleeping area. There was a smaller bathroom on the main floor with a nice shower, but I wanted to give her something nicer. So I took her to the bathroom in the main sleeping area. "Wow, that's a huge bed," she said. "You must like heights too." My loft had a big spiral staircase to reach the sleeping area. The walls around the sleeping area were removed, and only a low glass wall kept people from falling. The only spots in the loft where you couldn't be seen were the 2 bathrooms. I took her to the master bathroom and started filling the tub. "Sorry, Victoria, I don't have any nice bath products," I said. She opened her jacket, and I noticed something. I understood why her chest moved so much when I almost bumped into her earlier. She wasn't wearing a bra, and it looked like she needed one. She began to lift her jacket to cover herself, but then decided against it. "You're going to see anyway," she said, and began to take off her clothes. "Maybe wait to undress until the tub fills up," I suggested gently. "That way I can bring you a robe and slippers later without interrupting you." "You probably just need time to set up the cameras," she muttered under her breath. 5 minutes later, I knocked softly at the door, opened it slightly, and placed a thick robe on a hook inside. I dropped slippers on the floor and closed the door again without going in. I made a few phone calls and left a message at work that I would arrive late, then returned to my movie. About 30 minutes later, I was watching when I noticed Victoria standing at the end of the couch. "Now that's a big TV!" she exclaimed. I took off my 3D glasses and tossed them to her. She stepped back from the screen and put them on. She started reaching out for things that weren't there. I knew what she was seeing. There were all sorts of realistic 3D effects in the scene that made it feel like she was really in the jungle. "I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that. I don't think you want to do anything to me while I sleep. But if that's what you like, it could happen. I'm full, clean, and really cozy. You wouldn't believe how relaxed I feel right now." Victoria, I think you've misunderstood me, I said. I guess I gave you that impression when I was trying to scare you when you first arrived. But part of it was your fault for being so rude. My name is Jason. I'm just a regular guy. I don't think I'm strange at all. I have a good job and I try to be nice to people, but I feel really lonely. I got divorced a while ago. It was tough and took a lot out of me. My ex-wife is attractive, wealthy, spoiled, and quite hard to deal with. We divorced because she cheated on me all the time. I was naive at first. I caught her cheating before we got married, but I believed her when she said it wasn't true. A little over a year ago, I came home early from work and caught her in bed with someone else. Even then, she tried everything to avoid the divorce. She even tried to get pregnant to keep me tied to her. So it's been almost a year since I've been with anyone. I guess I have trust issues now because of what happened with Dana. She really hurt me. She shook her head as I spoke. So tonight I decided I just didn't want to be alone anymore. I've never even talked to a prostitute before you, I said, chuckling. Here's my deal. I want to hire you, but not like you think. I'll pay you $30,000 to live with me for a year. After that, we can go our separate ways. I think this could be good for both of us. You'll have a safe place to stay, food, and enough money to get your own apartment or go to school or whatever you want. I saw that she was now sitting up straight on the couch. We can sort out all the details in the morning if you're really tired, I added. No way, let's talk now, she replied. You're offering me $30,000 to live with you for a year? Are you serious? Yes, I said. Isn't that a good amount? Okay, but what do I have to do for you? She asked, eyeing me closely. You know, the usual stuff, I replied. Talking, and you'd need to cook, and shopping too. No way, we'll shop together, she said. What about cleaning? Do I have to clean too? Nope, we have a cleaning lady who comes in twice a week, I answered. But you will have to go out with me sometimes. There are company events where I'll need you to act friendly and pretend to like me. If you do well at those, I might give you a bonus. What about if I need some time off? She asked. What if I want to do something? Well, as long as you're discreet, it would be okay, I said, noticing her funny look. What are you talking about, Jason? She asked, looking confused. I just meant if someone I know saw you on a date, they might think I found another woman who'd cheat on me, I explained. When I said time off, I meant to visit my mom. I don't have anyone to date. I'm a prostitute, remember? She laughed. Okay, what about clothes and things? She asked, looking a bit more excited. I'll pay for your clothes when it comes to parties or special events. For anything else, I can give you money for expenses, but your personal items come from your pay. She looked like she was thinking it over. You're a cheap fake boyfriend, she laughed. Okay, I'll pay for your clothes too, and you can drive the Jeep, I offered. This negotiation was going downhill fast. That's better, she smiled. But there are 4 things we need to discuss. First, what happens after a year, and why choose a year? I figured after a year you'd have 30 grand and be ready for your next step. I might be ready to try for a real relationship too. At 32, I'm still young enough to think about getting married and having kids, I replied. What if you're not ready for that, or if I want more money? She asked. Then we could talk again and maybe you'd want more money, I said. But a year is a long time. Let's see how it goes. Second, about those company events. What about things not related to work or if I want to do something fun? She asked. I come from a small town and a small farming community, so I might want to go out and do things. Will there be times when my fake boyfriend takes me on dates and lets me choose? We can do that, but for every date you get, I get to have a non-company date too, I said. Third, how often do I have to be with you? She pressed. I told you, I have no intention of forcing you, I said seriously. She reached out her hand and we shook on the deal. What's number 4? I asked. Where do I sleep? She inquired. Well, you mentioned the bed is big, I replied with a grin. We split the bed in the middle with a line of pillows. Victoria fell asleep almost as soon as her head hit the pillow. I woke up early, as I always do, and found myself lying there watching her for a while. I wondered if I had made a big mistake. I went out through the interior door. There was a coffee shop in the main lobby of my building. I stopped by and got 3 French vanilla coffees and 2 big sugary donuts. I handed 1 coffee and a donut to Pete, the doorman. Hey, Pete, I'll have someone for you to meet later, I said. I hurried back to my apartment and started thinking about what I would do in a few weeks when the snow fell. I had given my Jeep to my new pretend girlfriend, and my other car didn't handle snow well at all. I ran up the stairs and wrote a quick note to Victoria. I told her that it was not too late to change her mind about our deal, and if she wanted to back out, there was $500 on the counter. I wished her well. I also told her we'd be shopping all afternoon, so she should be ready when I got back at noon. I left her my cell phone number, too. She was curled up under the blankets, softly snoring. The covers were pulled up to her chin, and her hair was messy. I really wanted to fix her hair. I leaned over and kissed her gently on the forehead, then added another blanket because it was a bit chilly. I decided to take my black Mustang because it was quieter, and I didn't want to wake her. But she didn't move as I opened the garage door. Half of my office staff looked at me as I stepped off the elevator. I took a sip of coffee and headed to my office. Less than 5 minutes after I sat at my computer, I heard the sound of high heels angrily clicking down the hall. They didn't stop as they entered my outer office, and I overheard some loud words. Someone shouted, "You can't go in there without permission. You're not married to him anymore." Then I heard someone else say, "Shut up!" I didn't look up as my door burst open and slammed so hard that the whole room shook. "Good morning, Miss Navaro," I said with a hint of sarcasm. "That's not my name," she yelled. "My last name is Burton, just like yours. Who the heck is she?" she screamed at me. "I've let you play your game and get a divorce, but this is too much. I will not put up with you being with someone else. I'm still your wife. Get rid of her today, or I will." She stood there in a long fur coat, glaring at me as I kept my eyes on the screen. I found it strange that Dana knew about Victoria. It seemed like she always had inside information on me. I thought someone in the building must have been telling her things. "Dana, are you going to just stand there all day?" I asked. She stayed quiet. I pressed a button on my desk, and Myrna, my secretary, walked in. "Myrna, can you turn down the heat in here a bit? Miss Navaro is making it really hot with all her anger. Maybe bring her a chair and a cup of coffee, since it looks like she'll be here for a while." "Sure," she replied. "Does Miss Navaro want cream and sugar?" "My name is not Navaro anymore," Dana shouted. "We're still married whether you like it or not, so just deal with it and stop bringing other women home." She turned on her heel and left my office, slamming the door loudly behind her. Myrna smiled at me after Dana left. "Is it true? Did you really meet someone new?" "Yes, Myrna," I said with a smile. "I did meet someone. No wonder you're so happy. But why did you tell Dana?" "That's just it, Myrna. I haven't said anything to anyone. I need you to find a good private investigator. I'll go to my morning meeting now, then I'll be off for the day. Can you bring in a couple of them to interview at my place at 6? The morning meeting usually was great for me, but today it felt boring. I was excited to get out of there and go home. I hadn't felt this way about leaving work since before I found out Dana was cheating on me. An hour later, after a quick meeting, I opened the garage door and saw her sitting on my couch with her arms crossed. I noticed the fire in her green eyes. She looked upset about something. I wondered what it was about me that made women angry. "Hi," I said softly. She suddenly started crying and talking too fast for me to understand. I pulled her close for a hug. She tried to pull back, but I held on till she calmed down. "What's wrong, Victoria?" I asked. "I thought we had a deal," she said. "We do," I replied, looking into her eyes. "Then why did you leave money on the counter like I'm a joke?" she yelled. "I had a nice dream where everything was perfect, and then I found your note and the money. Then that awful woman yelled for me outside, so I acted like I wasn't here," she cried. "What awful woman?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "She was wearing a long fur coat and shouting that you didn't need me because you had her. She looked really pretty, so I thought maybe you found someone new. That's why you left me the money," she said, wiping away a tear. "Victoria, that was Dana, my wild ex-wife," I replied. "I left the money just in case you changed your mind about us. I haven't changed mine. Can we go shopping now? You really need some new clothes. I feel like every time you breathe, you might pop out of that shirt." She looked at me with caution and then followed me to the car. "I was a bit confused about what was real and what was a dream," she said. "Sorry I doubted you," she added as she sat next to me, settling into the soft leather seats of the Mustang. "Did you really kiss me goodbye this morning, or was that just a dream?" Sorry, that was me, I said. Non-public kisses cost extra, she smirked. I'll keep a tab for you. I've never liked shopping, and I thought today would be the same. But shopping with Victoria was different. She was careful with money and wanted to try on every piece of clothing, modeling each one for me. Before we found the first outfit, we needed to get her some good bras to fit her. We bought her skirts, dresses, pants, jeans, shirts, sweaters, shoes, boots, and of course, underwear. She felt shy about going into a lingerie store, so we picked out panties and bras from a regular clothing store. I kept all the receipts and showed them to her when we were finished. The total was just over $4,000. Her eyes widened when she saw the bill. This one's on me, I told her. But you have to pay for the rest of your clothes except for the ones for work events. I plan to pay you back over the next week, she said. How? I asked, looking at her with doubt. Well, those morning kisses are $500 each, she laughed. I thought by the end of the week we'd be even. Now we had two problems. First, we needed to arrange to have her clothes delivered because my car couldn't hold everything. We left many items in the stores and made a list of which ones we needed to go back to. Most stores didn't offer delivery, so I called Myrna to explain and ask her to take care of it. With only a few bags in the Mustang's small back seat and trunk, we headed home. Our second problem was that we didn't have time to get food because we needed to be home by 6, so we decided to eat at a restaurant, which made Victoria smile. Do you always drive this fast? She asked as we sped down the freeway. Pretty much, I replied. We got to the loft just a few minutes before the phone rang. Victoria answered it and told Pete who she was. Hello? I heard her say. Hi, Pete. I'm Victoria, his new girlfriend. Yes, he's here. We just got back. She looked at me and I nodded. Yes, Pete, he's expecting you. Send them back. She hung up and smiled at me. I charge extra for answering the phone, too. Then she went upstairs. A short time later, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to let in 2 men and a lovely brunette. The men were not what I expected. When I thought of private investigators, I pictured an old, worn-out person. Instead, one looked like he just came from college and the other seemed like a businessman. The woman was too pretty to just be sitting in an office listening to tapes of people being unfaithful. When she smiled at me, I smiled back. Okay, Mr. Burton, we have some information from your assistant, Mrs. Stevenson, but if you don't mind, we'd like to hear more from you. I began. This morning, my ex-wife visited me. She knows more about me than I'm comfortable with, and I want to know how she found out. The two of them exchanged glances, like people who have worked together for a long time. The nerdy guy looked at the brunette, and she nodded. He then left the loft. A few minutes later, he returned with several cases. He opened them and took out different pieces of equipment. He and the other man started checking the loft. The larger man began in the garage, looking inside and under my cars. The smaller, nerdy guy started in the kitchen and worked his way around. The brunette sat comfortably on my sofa, explaining what they were doing. When the men finished their checks, they came back and said my loft and cars were clean. That gives us another idea, the brunette explained. You seem sure that your ex doesn't have someone watching you as you came in through your private entrance, but that means she might have a private investigator following you. Then she would know where you go, who you are with, and when. What can you do about that? I asked. We could follow you to try to find out who she hired. We could also look into her finances to track who she's paying to follow you. Let's do both, I said. I'll also set up something else and keep you in the loop. I think the brunette was about to say something, but she stopped. The nerdy guy dropped the device he was holding, and it clattered loudly on the floor. Oh no, someone said. It felt like all the air had vanished from the room. Victoria was slowly walking down the stairs, wearing a dress I didn't see her try on. The color was a rich sea green, and I knew it would match her eyes perfectly. The dress fit her curves nicely, which is why she was moving so carefully. It was cut just below her knees, and it hugged her body. The front of the dress had a low cut that showed off her chest. It had 2 tiny straps holding it up, showing her smooth skin. I looked around and saw the nerdy guy and his friend staring at her just as I expected, but I was surprised to see another girl, a brunette, staring too. She seemed shocked and had her mouth open. Victoria walked into the room and moved around the couch to sit beside me. She took my hand and glanced at our guests. I don't think any of them could speak at that moment. I introduced them to her. She stood up to shake the brunette's hand and just waved at the guys. What caught my attention was how different Victoria looked compared to the brunette. The brunette was taller, but she seemed thinner next to Victoria. It was clear from the brunette's look that she was just as curious about Victoria as the two guys were. "We'll contact you soon and we'll start our work tomorrow," said the brunette as they got up to leave. Once the door closed, Victoria turned to me and asked, "How did I do? Was it okay for my first time pretending to be your girlfriend?" "Where did you get that dress?" I asked. "You bought it for me earlier today. I wanted to surprise you, so I didn't try it on. I thought it would fit since we got pants and a skirt from the same designer. But it doesn't fit quite right. Should we return it?" she asked. "No way, don't even think about returning that dress," I replied. She stood up, looking at me as if I were silly. Then she turned around to show me. "It's fine in the front, but it's a bit tight across my backside. I saw in the bathroom mirror that my underwear showed, so I had to take them off because it was too snug." She stood there as if I could magically make the dress bigger or change her body. I would never do either. But her facing me in that dress was distracting. While I was still looking, she turned her head and gave me a look with those big green eyes. I realized I liked her a lot, but this could easily turn complicated. In the following weeks, Rhea, short for Victoria, and I got used to living together. There were ups and downs, but having her around made my life so much better. It was even better than my best times with Dana. Our first little fight was about her hair. I made an appointment for her to get her hair styled and told the stylist not to cut it or change how it was styled. Her hair was perfect as it was. Rhea was not happy with that plan. She thought the blonde streaks made her look more interesting. But after a few days, she agreed it didn't matter much, and if I liked it, she was okay with it too. Another issue was how we slept. I had promised not to pressure her, as she put it, but I found it hard to stick to that promise, especially since after a few weeks, she didn't think the pillows between us were needed anymore. There were many mornings when I woke up with her leg over mine or not even knowing how we ended up so close. It was clear our relationship was changing, more than we had agreed. I didn't realize she felt the same way until she called me at work one morning. My assistant always put her calls straight through, no matter what. Unfortunately, I was arguing with Dana at that moment about a party we were planning for Kurt and Verna's anniversary. I hit the speakerphone button, and Rhea's voice came through. "You left without kissing me goodbye this morning," she said, sounding upset. Dana grabbed the phone and threw it against the wall. She stormed out of the office, yelling, "Don't you dare bring that girl to my parents' anniversary party. You and I are going together like a couple should." She slammed the door behind her. I thought Rhea sounded calm as I tried to call her back. I didn't know then that Rhea could get just as mad as Dana. When I got home, I expected to find Rhea relaxed at home. Instead, she was pacing in the living room. As soon as I got close, she started yelling at me. "Jason, what is this?" she shouted, almost tripping over some boxes on the floor. At first, I thought it was funny until I realized she had found some things I didn't want her to see, and she was not happy. "Rhea, when we made our deal, we agreed on some boundaries," I started to say. But I was just a guy. "I have needs," I said with a shrug. "I'm supposed to be your girlfriend," she cried. "Aren't I doing enough?" "You're doing great," I replied. But I didn't tell her that she was actually doing too well in some ways. What had started as a way to have some company and stop people from bothering me about dating had turned into so much more. She made my life better. Now no one was trying to match me up with anyone. Some of my friends even asked when the wedding would be. And as a bonus, Dana really did not like her. They had never even talked, and Dana couldn't stand being in the same room with her. I was looking forward to the company holiday party where they'd both have to be. But there were problems, too. First, Victoria still thought of herself as just a simple farm girl. She had no idea how men saw her. Growing up on an isolated farm, she had missed out on normal dating experiences. Being thrown into the rough part of D.C. didn't help her social or dating skills either. Whenever the topic of sex came up, she talked about bad things that happened to her. I guessed it was because that was all she knew. She had seen movies about love and had good family examples, but her own life was nothing like that. She often wrapped her long legs around me when we slept, but we hardly touched otherwise. If we did, she quickly pulled away, looking at me as if I had done something wrong. One morning we woke up close together. I was surprised to find myself in a very intimate position. I felt very good, but when she woke up and saw what was happening, she jumped out of bed screaming, "What are you trying to do, you pervert?" I didn't point out that she was the one who had pushed my hand against her, or that she had pressed against me. An even bigger problem was that I realized I was in love with her. Seeing the pain in her eyes as she ruined my DVDs was not the right moment to tell her that. "We could have talked about this," she said sharply. "I used to be a prostitute, you know." "Victoria, I never think of you that way," I replied gently, hoping to avoid a fight. "So instead you hide this and make me feel cheap?" she snapped. "For all I know, you could be with someone else. No wonder Dana thinks you're still married. I can't do this anymore. I want to leave now." I took out my checkbook and wrote her a check. She looked shocked and started to speak, but then tears filled her eyes and she just left. I stayed there, thinking about what I should have told her and why I hadn't hidden the adult content better. The whole place felt empty now. I went upstairs and looked at the dress she had picked for the anniversary party and sighed. She would have looked so beautiful in that. I put on my suit and left. At the hall we had rented, I gave Kurt and Verna their anniversary gift. I talked to my brothers-in-law and their families and a few co-workers. Dana came toward me, trying hard to be friendly. I didn't argue back. After an hour, I really wanted to leave. I had done my part but didn't feel like being at a party even though I had been looking forward to it. Dana was holding my hand as we walked around. She was smiling widely. Then, Myrna, who wasn't helping, asked the question everyone had been avoiding. "Hey, boss, where's your girlfriend?" Dana's smile faded and she got very cold. She was beautiful in a white gown with long blonde hair. "I'm right here, you old bag. I'm not his girlfriend. I'm his wife, and I'm beside him like I should be." Before Myrna could say anything that she'd regret, someone spoke from behind me in a warm tone. "Dana, you're his ex-wife. That means not married anymore." "He's not married, and I'm his girlfriend now." It was Victoria, and she had brought back my smile. She stepped next to me, separating our hands as she did. "Don't think you're off the hook just because I'm here," she whispered, kissing me. "We have a lot to talk about." The rest of the evening went well. We danced, ate, and Victoria met everyone. My co-workers who hadn't met her before finally saw what all the fuss was about. Those who already knew her got to say, "I told you so." Kurt and Verna loved her too. "I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that. I don't do this for free, you know." "Well, I have $30,000 downstairs. Let me know when it runs out," she replied. She wrapped her arms around me and pulled the blanket over us. As I started to fall asleep with her on top of me, I heard her say, "Jason, I'm sorry for messing up your plans, but I think I love you. I have for a long time." Victoria moved from being my fake girlfriend to my real girlfriend without skipping a beat. I was so happy with her as my fake girlfriend, but words can't explain how much joy she brought me as the real deal. But there were problems ahead. My detective agency was back in action. Dana had hired someone to follow me, and they were still on my trail. Another agency was following me too, and Dana didn't hire them. We didn't know who hired the second agency, but we were doing our best to keep them from spying on us. It was almost funny how much effort we put into just having a quiet night out. Someone would take one of my cars to throw off the enemy private investigators, while Rhea and I took a beat-up rental car in the opposite direction. Outside of the loft, we had little privacy. Rhea often just went shopping without worries. She thought they were after me and that she didn't matter. One day, I came home to find Rhea crying on the sofa with her bags packed. I jumped out of the car and ran to her. "Rhea, what's wrong?" I asked. "I have to leave," she said through her tears. "I need to get far away from you." "Rhea, I haven't bought anything bad," I said. She pulled me close and kissed me. "Jason, always remember that I really love you. That's why I'm leaving." "No, Rhea, you're not leaving," I said firmly. "Sit down and tell me what's going on." "A man approached me at the market. He knew my name and everything," she said, sniffling. "He knew about my past, too, and he said he'd tell everyone. All your friends and colleagues would know. You'd be laughed at, and your name would be ruined, all because of me," she cried. "He said the only way to fix it was for me to sleep with him," she sniffled. "I thought about saying yes because I'd do anything for you, Jason. But when it was time, I just couldn't do it. It's something special between us, and I didn't want to share it with him. But I couldn't let him ruin you, so I have to go," she sniffled. Rhea, you aren't going anywhere. Do you have a way to contact this guy? I asked. Yes, she replied. Call him and tell him you'll meet him tomorrow. Say that something came up and you can't meet today, I said. Rhea called him and he agreed. She had to go alone the next day to a sleazy little motel just a mile from where I first met her. Jason, will you still love me if I do this? She asked, tears in her eyes. Of course, never doubt that, I said. Rhea, this is just sex. What we have is love, and that's so much more important. You do this once, and then we just move on with our lives, okay? I hugged her. I hated lying, but it was better she didn't know everything. Just as we got into bed that night, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, and I was cautious when I answered. Hello? I said sharply. Jason, I'm sure you know who this is. I recognized Dana's loud voice right away, and my heart sank. I need to meet you tomorrow after work. I have bad news about that girl you're with. She's been unfaithful, and I have proof. I hung up the phone. Tomorrow was going to be very tough. My life was about to take a big turn. Not only would I have to watch someone else with the woman I loved, but I might also risk losing my job and respect. Plus, my crazy ex-wife claimed to have proof that Rhea was cheating. As soon as I turned off the light, Rhea was right next to me. For a woman Dana said was cheating, she wasn't acting like it, but maybe it was guilt. She tried to be close to me and then started crying afterward. I don't want to be with anyone else, she sobbed. It won't feel the same. Of course it won't, Rhea, I said, and I don't want you to do it either. I probably shouldn't tell you this, but if everything goes well, you might not have to. She looked shocked in the dim light. She fumbled for the lamp and turned the light on, crossing her arms across her chest, but I could still see her. Jason, what are you planning? She asked. I thought you couldn't love me if you let me go off with another man. The private investigators we hired a while back discovered that 2 people from my past have hired spies to watch us, I explained. I think one of them is Dana, but I don't know who the other one is. They might be connected, or they might not. The motel where you're supposed to meet him tomorrow is being bugged for sound and video right now. Our private investigators and a friend from the police will be there. I also have a lawyer trying to help clear your name. She smiled again and hugged me tightly. We didn't get much sleep that night because so much could go wrong. Bright and early the next day, Rhea and I took a shower together. She put on a skirt and sweater that were fitting but not very revealing. I knew this would be frustrating for the person trying to control her. It would feel like a long wait that would never end for him. I knew where she needed to go, but I couldn't go with her because she was supposed to go alone. So I left about 20 minutes before she did and drove over in a van with our private investigation company. Our investigators found out that his team would be watching the area to make sure she really came by herself. They would probably check the room for hidden cameras and listening devices. But the truth was, his team wasn't as good as mine. We had many hidden devices set up that couldn't be found until they were turned on, and they wouldn't turn on until Rhea entered the room. Some furniture also had built-in cameras that wouldn't be noticed. There were cameras hidden in both the microwave and the TV, and 2 more in the ceiling fan. We managed to find the signal he used to talk to his team, and we were ready to block it so he couldn't be warned when we made our move. Rhea walked up the steps, thinking she was alone, but in reality, she was surrounded by people working for me or her unknown stalker. Just as she got close to the room, a man stepped out and scanned her with a long stick that didn't touch her. She's clean and wow, she looks great, he said into the room. Rhea carefully entered the room, and the man walked back down the stairs. Inside the van, I was really nervous. Suddenly, the video screen turned on, and I could see and hear everything in the room. Sally Kincaid, the female investigator from the agency I hired, told me to calm down. She said it would all be over soon. He's not going to hurt her. He just wants to blackmail her, she said. This has to do with you. His team has been in touch with your ex-wife's team, so maybe there's some kind of shared hatred. When she said that, I started to guess who it was. Inside the motel, my fears were confirmed when Tim Pritchet appeared on the screen. I'm going to take him down this time, I said, feeling tense. Wait until he says something useful for police, Sally replied. Why am I here? Rhea asked on the screen. You're here by choice, said Pritchet. It's a simple deal. You give me what I want, and I won't ruin your boyfriend's life by telling everyone about your past. I told you to come alone, but honestly, I wish you had brought him. It would be better if he was here watching me. You're blackmailing me, Rhea responded. That's one way to look at it, Pritchet said. But I think you'll enjoy this. Jason's wife did. Jason is probably used to me being with his women. When he finds out, he just gives them up and gets a divorce. You won't even need a divorce. That was too much for me. I jumped out of the van. Start the blocker quickly, I heard Sally shout. I rushed up the stairs without anyone stopping me. I kicked open the door just in time to see Rhea dodging around a couch, chased by Tim Pritchet. It took you long enough, she smiled. I thought I'd have to run out of here. Jason! Pritchet screamed, his voice rising like a teenager's when he saw me. I know, Tim, I said, just like you told me last time. It's not what I think, right? Before he could answer, I punched him in the mouth. Rhea then kicked him in the stomach. Just as she got ready to do more, we heard heavy steps coming up the stairs. Is that him? Asked a big man, leaning over Pritchet, who was curled up on the floor. Why is he on the floor? He was chasing Rhea, and then he admitted he was trying to blackmail her. He fell and hit himself on her foot as I came in, I said. Officer Nelson looked at Pritchet, who was still moaning. Why is his mouth bleeding? He must have hit it when he fell, I replied. Pritchet was too busy in pain to say anything. Nelson called for an ambulance. The rest of us, Victoria, Sally, and the other agents, went to the station. The district attorney wasn't happy about the situation and the way we got our evidence. Most of it was illegal and couldn't be used in court. My lawyer quickly smoothed things over by explaining that after my first divorce, caused by my wife cheating with Tim Pritchet, I had trust issues. I fell in love with Victoria but then suspected her of cheating. So I hired Sally's agency to get proof, and when we followed her today, we discovered the blackmail and had proof. We didn't know what to do, so we asked a cop friend for help, and he came and arrested Tim, who seemed to enjoy ruining my relationships while being married himself. By the time we left almost 3 hours later, Pritchet was charged with blackmail, attempted extortion, and other crimes. The private investigation firm he hired was in trouble. All their workers were going to lose their licenses because they helped with something illegal. The district attorney was also going to clear Rhea's record. I'll still be with you, she whispered to me. After everything Rhea had been through, I didn't want to tell her about Dana and what she said. I felt like it was all lies. If I had to choose between Rhea, who was trying to change her life, and a wealthy girl who cheated, I would trust Rhea more. I loved her. So I told Rhea I needed to go to work for a bit and asked her to get ready because we were going to celebrate later. I asked Dana to meet me at my office to show me what she had. Mina looked at me like I was up to no good as she let Dana into my office. Jason, I'm so happy you want to talk, Dana said cheerfully. Soon this bad part of your life will be over and we can start a family. Just say what you need to say, Dana, I told her coldly. I was supposed to have a video of Rhea cheating, but my source didn't deliver, she explained. You might not want to hear this, but she was cheating on you with Tim Pritchet. I don't have the video, but I have something else that's just as bad. Look at this. She pulled out a paper showing Rhea's citation for suspected solicitation. An idea popped into my head. This doesn't prove anything. It just shows she was caught in the area during an arrest. They didn't catch her doing anything, I said with a smile, glancing at Dana. You already knew about this, didn't you, Jason? Dana asked. The idea of her being like that excites you, doesn't it? It brings out the wild side of you that we used to share before we divorced. She looked surprised, but I could tell she was intrigued too. I can be like that much better than she can, Jason. I can be everything you want, Dana said. I don't know, Dana, I replied with doubt. Just give me one chance, she begged. I'll do anything. I told Dana how to dress and where to meet me. She was smiling as she left my office. Mina, did you hear all that? I asked, knowing the intercom light had been on since Dana walked in. You might as well come with me to see how this ends. I called Nelson again to tell him what was happening. With a collar like the one from earlier, he could easily become a detective. I drove back to the first warehouse where I worked for Dana's dad. I got 2 of our truck loaders to help out. They were great guys, but I chose them because of how they looked. Steve was a big, quiet guy who was loading trucks to pay for college. Eric was Cuban and looked tough, but he was a family man. I promised them $500 each for what they thought would be a joke. I also called the local newspaper and told them about a prostitution ring in the area. The editor wasn't interested. He said there was so much of that in the area it kept the city safe from trouble. I told him this ring was different because it involved the wives and daughters of important business people and politicians. I insisted he should send a photographer, giving him a specific street. I suggested that if he didn't get pictures within 2 hours, he would only waste some time, but it could be a big story. 40 minutes later, Mina, Rhea, and I watched from the tinted windows of my car. Dana stood in front of the same old shop where I first met Rhea. She had her long blonde hair in 2 braids, wearing high heels and a very short skirt. It was clear she wasn't wearing underwear. "Rhea, how does it feel to be back in this area?" I asked her. Before she could respond, I pointed to the news van already filming. They didn't know who Dana was yet, but they would soon recognize her from charity events. My bright yellow Mustang turned the corner and slowly moved toward Dana. She quickly walked over to the car and leaned inside as the window rolled down. She must have been surprised to see someone else driving. Later, she would be even more shocked to see the news footage of herself. As soon as she heard a police car arriving, she stood up straight, and the photographers got great shots of her face. Eric had sped away, leaving tire marks, knowing Nelson wouldn't chase him. Dana was arrested for indecent exposure, bad behavior, and solicitation. An hour later, Mina, Rhea, and I were having dinner when Dana called, asking for help to get her out. She insisted it was all a misunderstanding and tried to blame me. Kurt didn't seem surprised. He just helped her out and told her to go away on a long vacation. Later, Kurt and Verna talked to me. They wanted to know how much of Dana's story was true. I always told Kurt the truth, so I told him I did it just to stop Dana from bothering me. I also said Dana tried to get me to get rid of Rhea because she thought I would listen to her. That was because Dana had been arrested before for something she did. "I have 2 questions for you," Kurt said, giving me a serious look. He was like a father to me, so I knew I needed to pay attention. "First question," he started. "Did she really have an arrest record?" "Yes," I said. Verna came over and sat next to him. I think I mentioned before that I really liked Verna. She was the best woman I had ever known. I just wished her daughter had been more like her. If she had been, I think I would still be married. "So she was really a prostitute?" he asked, struggling a bit to say that word. "Well, yes, sir," I replied. "Second question," he said. "Do you love her?" This time I didn't hesitate at all. "Yes, sir, I do," I said. I realized I loved Rhea much more than I ever loved Dana. "Then you know what you need to do," he said seriously. "I'll start making plans right away." "I understand why it has to happen, but I'd rather resign than be fired," I said. For the first time, I saw Verna react in a way I didn't like. She just looked at Kurt and laughed. I couldn't believe she took my job situation so lightly. "What are you talking about?" he asked. "Is that the only thing you can say? Did they teach you in school to quit whenever there's a problem?" "I don't get what you mean, sir," I said. "Verna, how long have we been married?" he asked her. 38 years, she replied, smiling. It was a smile full of love for her life. "Where did we meet?" he asked, knowing they both remembered well. "In Las Vegas," she answered, still smiling. "And where in Las Vegas?" he asked, looking at me this time. "At the Bunny Ranch," she said. "I worked there. And no, Jason, I didn't wait tables or serve drinks. I was a prostitute." "So, sir, what are you saying I should do?" I asked. 3 days later, in a ceremony with Kurt, Verna, Myrna, Kurt Jr., and his wife George and his wife, my friend Tom, Detective Nelson, Sally, and about 50 people from work, I married Victoria. Dana had to come too, but she did not look happy about it. Hey, audience! If you liked this video and want to keep up with more thrilling stories, make sure to subscribe to Prince Cheating Tales and hit the notification bell. You don't want to miss out on our upcoming adventures. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next wonderful story.